So is the US dollar over? Is the US dollar time out? It's just going to sink all the way down. And what's causing it to fall? Well, if you look at US debt, which I've talked about on Instagram and on X, it's just rising. In fact, reached all-time highs. And Congress recently has approved a $4 trillion plus increase in the debt ceiling. Remember, Donald Trump came in on the back of his campaign that he's going to cut US debt. He's going to cut spending, get rid of all the waste. Yeah, we know about all the waste in the woke offices that are running around in the US. So about 175 billion so far has been cut, which is fair enough. However, traders and investors are not confident in US debt or UK debt, or in fact any other government debt, because governments globally are just spending as if there's no tomorrow. So what's going to happen to the US dollar? Well, let's think about it. Only about 75% of government bonds are bought by traders and investors, where it used to be 100%. The other 25% means there is a surplus in financial markets. Who's buying the surplus? Let's go back to the US government, or to be more specific, the US Treasury. The US Treasury is buying back the surplus bonds and calling it normalization of the bond market. Normalization quite simply means that they are interfering in the bond market. It's not the first time. They've interfered before, back in 2008 and back in 1933. There's a history of it back in 1978, I think it was. Need to check that date, not too sure, but there's been interference in the US bond market. So as they print more dollars, because they don't have any dollars, they have to print them, then those dollars are sent out into the system and they're used to buy back government bond to make out as though the US treasuries are essentially 100% taken up. But they're not. So what happens to that money that goes out into the market? Well, that essentially is quantitative easing, or as terminologies come out, light quantitative easing. In other words, it's not real quantitative easing, it's just a small printing of money, about 48 billion, 90 billion. It's probably going to end about 300 to 400 billion, which will float over to the banks, the Morgan Stanleys, JP Morgans, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, etc., etc., and they will love it, because that liquidity will then cause asset prices to rise. What asset prices? Stocks and shares. So the 8 major banks, or the 10 major banks on Wall Street, are going to have a heyday over the next few years with a load of money coming in that they didn't expect, because of bond prices that are going to go down and yields are going to go up, which means that the US dollar is going to get weaker.